This is Paul Levy. It's the 31st of December 2019. We're about to enter a new decade. And I was saying to a friend recently that I can remember as a child going into my teens back in the late 70s, early 80s, thinking that 2000 would never come. And now I'm in that classic place saying to my family and friends that I can't believe we're about to head into 2020. That was the future, that was science fiction. And here I am, just having broken a few years ago, 50. Looking ahead and looking back and looking into the present in this short video. And the last year particularly has really converged around a way of being that's become so normal to us that we don't really notice it. And it's the age of binary thinking. Here in the UK, it's been the age of leave or remain, with very little in between. In fact, a huge intolerance to the idea that as we were voting on Brexit, the departure of the UK from the European Union, that there was really only a vote that had happened, and it was a binary vote, either or. And we may also have got so used to the fact that we don't notice it, that we've applied that either or thinking, which is extremely convenient to businesses that want us to commit or not. And that behaviour that we really don't notice is there in almost every aspect of our life. And I overhear, as I travel on a bus or a train to various different places, conversations that are very binary indeed. We're either doing this or we're not. You're either in this relationship or you're not. You're either buying this or you're not. And even when we're presented with what seems like a middle way, it just tends to be another version of the binary world. And so when you get a 7-day trial, that trial is over and then you buy it or you don't. And sometimes there's more complicated versions of kind of little binary sub-processes where you can choose 1, 2 or 3. But it's still an either or decision. You're either choosing one or you're not. And one of the reasons I think people often find their holidays pleasant when they particularly genuinely rest, when they just maybe go out into nature or lie on the beach, is that they get away from the either or. They watch the sun setting gently over the horizon. They look at the infinite sea where no particular pattern, even though it might look like it, is exactly the same as even half or a tiny bit of a second ago. Nature demonstrates infinite variety. But life more and more has fled from that. If you try and leave a mobile phone contract, if you try and delete your Facebook, you're going to find that you're either deleting it or you're not. That we're presented with choices that are actually, it's often the submit button. You either press it or you don't. And that's put us into a place where our thinking is less flexible, where we find creativity complex and inconvenient because we've got so used to binary thinking. Now, of course, binary thinking offers you a very functional society. It offers things in a very efficient way. Literally, at a press of a button this Christmas, a lot of people have bought things literally within a few seconds. The binary world, of course, underlies the world of the digital technology that we've all taken for granted and is so much part of our lives. Either or, based on the binary language of 1 or 0. And it's created a huge amount of progress, but perhaps it's also taken us away from our central nature as complex beings, as beings of infinite diversity. That's inconvenient to algorithms and corporations that want us to do this or not. They want us to buy, and that requires the press of the button, the on or the off. And so, as I reflect, as we're going to a new millennium, I'm inviting you, if you're feeling a little bit dissatisfied with that, a little bit tired out of the constant needing to make decisions that are 1 or 0, is to take a walk on Christmas Day. We're lucky enough to live by the sea, and a walk down to the sea just offers you that infinite variety. The tide is never in or out. Even the moment when it's at its most out, it's started already to come back in again. And that can be refreshing, but initially even that can be tiring because you come back to yourself, to your essential nature, the inconvenient variety for the corporations, for the world of the digital, which is so now based around 1 or 0. But if you feel that you want at least part of you some of the time to not be 1 or 0, then you'll need to learn gently, slowly, to go back into the world of asking questions that are not binary, where you're going to need to explore the answers, learn to be patient in the world, because nothing is absolutely clear. But what that reveals to you then is the subtle differences in all of us, like looking at nature, like looking at a painting where there's so much to see and it's not pixelated. Perhaps your year 2020 and the start of a new decade isn't going to be either or. Perhaps it's going to be using the great benefits of the digital world, but you're going to put it in its place. You're going to say that binary is functional for you in certain circumstances, but not all circumstances. Perhaps it's time to have some time in your day to not be either or, to lie in without an alarm waking you up every time, not to need to constantly click and press with fingertips, but to actually go into the variety of nature, to enjoy uncertainty, to explore problems not from the idea of it's either this or that, but it could be one of a number of things yet to reveal themselves as you inquire into them. This is a new decade where we're going to be offered more and more binary technology. And even as we are offered through artificial intelligence what I'll call seeming variety, underneath it still are a bunch of algorithms that put you into something a bit like a computer game, where eventually you reach the conclusion that you're still being asked to either go left or to go right, to either go forward or go backwards, to either shoot that gun or not. And even when you're offered the possibility of being in something that seems so like the real world, you can soon start to notice that underneath it are still a bunch of 1s and 0s. Now, some people believe that we're going to discover that life itself, biological life, our psychological life, our consciousness, is just ultimately resolved as a bunch of 1s and 0s. Whereas other scientists, other people think that we'll never do that because we'll discover that nature is infinite variety. That's an interesting experiment as we go into the next decade. But certainly my experience as a facilitator, as a coach, as a writer, is the people I meet who describe their lives as having been most enriching have risked not just going up and down, but kind of going up and down the wave gently, going this way and that, not just this way or that. That actually the maze of life is complex, and the excitement that we can have and the sense of who we are is a process of learning, not 1 or 0, but all the possible numbers and all the spaces in between. Happy New Year.